Hello all. Welcome to my first Tip Tuesday. Hope you guys are having a good start of your week. Today we are going to talk a little bit about ink pads and refills and ink spots and things like that. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so like I said, this is kind of the stuff we're going to cover today. So I'm going to give you some fun tips and tricks. It's going to be a super quick video. Please feel free to comment. If you are watching this live, I'd love to know what's in your cup and how you're doing. And so I'm going to do this real quick and then I'll let you guys go. So let me move all this aside here and let's start with our classic ink pads. So our Stampin' pads are a sponge pad. So unlike the type of pads that you probably think of from back in the day, Stampin' pads are a sponge. They are not a felt pad. And so these are really, and I just got that on me. Wow. These are really, really great for stamping because they give you a really smooth image. So I very much love these. So I have a new Gorgeous Grape ink pad here and I want to show you, I've already put one label on here, but I'm going to show you the rest of them. Okay. So when you get a new ink pad, you want to put one of the language in your language on the front. And then you're going to, on the back here, and it comes from the back here, so that's where that one came from. Now, this one does have two other languages, plus a second one in your current language that you could add to the side, or I like to put it on the back. So I'm going to show you what I do. So I actually lift this up. You don't have to do this. You can leave it on there. But I just lift it up and I pull that label off like this. And then I'm going to add it to the back of my ink pad down here. So now I have one on the front and the back. And then I also grab this one here at the bottom that has no color on it. It's a little bit longer and skinnier. And that one is meant for inside. So when you have your ink pad open like this, you can see from the top what color it is by adding this here. Now, I do know some people who like to put it on the side, but I like to put it in the inside, which is what it was intended for. And then I just kind of use some kind of tool, either a spatula, you could use your spatula if you want to, just to make sure it's in there nicely, okay? All right, so now I like to remove this piece once I've done all that because it does add some bulk to my ink pad. You don't have to do that. You can totally leave this sticker on here and everything and it'll be fine. But I like to get up under the sticker down to the piece that's underneath it, the release paper underneath it, so that I can see this label underneath. And so I just gently pull this up. And you just want to go slow and at about a 45-degree angle. So I'm pulling this piece that's the sticker plus this release paper basically up off of my ink pad, because once I've put everything on there, I don't really need this part anymore. Okay, so this is really just waste. So I'm going to throw that away, and then that gives me a nice clean base, and I can see my name of my stamp pad here as well. Okay, so that's how I start by setting up my ink pad. The next tip and trick I want to give you is these are very tight, and that's by design because the idea is for this ink pad in here to not dry out. And I just got some kind of plastic or something on my ink pad, so I'm just gonna remove that real quick. Okay. It happens. Okay, so that's to keep it from drying out, but I know sometimes that makes it a little tight when you're opening and closing it. This one is not super tight, so I don't really have to do too much with it. They're all individual, so you're going to want to do whatever you need to do per ink pad. So what I do is I start by putting my thumbs on either side of the top here, and I'm going to try to show this to you well. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to push with these fingers center, and I'm going to push out with my thumbs. So I'm going to go like this. Can you see how I'm splitting it open just a little bit? I hope. Okay. Not a lot. I'm just putting a little bit of pressure on that. I don't want to do too much. Okay, now this one doesn't need too much, but some need a little bit more. Okay, and if you need someone to help you with this, you can. So add just a little bit of pressure because they're tight when you first get them. That'll help a lot. Then once you open this up, what you're going to do next is you're going to grab some chapstick. I recommend having one that's just, you know, a cheap one that you use just for this. It's completely up to you what you use. But so I just take some chapstick and I add that to the side rail here on both sides of my ink pad. And basically we're just lubricating the edge of our ink pad. And so now I'm going to slide it back and forth in the track several times, and that's going to help get that all nice and smooth. And as you can see, it is already a whole lot smoother than it was before. So for those of you that are not familiar with using your ink pads, you open it like a compact, right? And then you slide it. Now, a little tip I can give you too is if you slide it all the way, it clicks into place, which means you now have to unclick it. And some of them are tighter than others. However, if you slide it to just like here, so you leave a little bit of a gap, it's a lot easier later when you go to open it back up and then close the door, if you will, okay? So we're just opening and sliding, sliding and closing. And so it's very easy to just stop right here. Do not use your ink pad like this when you're stamping. You can use your ink pad like this when you've put ink in this area. So one of the things you can do is you can press like this and it creates a little bit of ink here that you can use for watercolor or whatever you want to do, or your blender pens. However, once you're finished with this, you want to wipe that off, because if there's any water in here, when you close this, you're going to be getting water in your ink pad, and you really don't want to do that. So I always clean this area off unless it's just ink like this. If I don't touch it, that's fine. It's not going to hurt anything. But if there's any, if I've used any kind of water or anything in this area, I want to make sure to clean this off before I close and store my ink pad. Okay? So, and because of the way our lid works, your ink pad is automatically stored upside down, which is how you want to store them. So by having this up, I am storing my ink pad upside down, which is really nice. So that's part of the design as well. They're also interlocking, so I don't know if you've ever noticed that, but our ink pads are interlocking. So you can see here, I can do this if I really want to, but there's these little feet. Can you see that? These little feet that interlock. And so I'm putting pressure on it. Unless I put a whole lot of pressure on it, they do interlock. Okay, so that's some of the basics of our ink pad and what you can do to get it prepped and ready for stamping. Now, Stamping 101 is a completely different video. I'm really just talking about the ink pads themselves today. So we're just hitting some tips and tricks with that. We'll do stamping another time, okay? So setting up your ink pad, that's number one. Number two is, what do you do when your ink pad gets to where it needs more ink? Now, mine looks funny, I know that, but ignore that part. This one needs more ink really bad. So I have got my ink refill, and these are really great because these are good for not only your ink pad, but also, sorry, I forgot to grab it, you're also your Stampin' Right markers. And so you can fill these with these as well. So, and I'll talk about that in a second. So you can refill your ink pad simply by taking your ink refill, make sure you have the right color, of course, and I'm doing Calypso Coral here, and I needed to refill this one really bad. So I'm gonna just add ink, and you can see it's sort of disappearing like right away into my ink pad. That's how I know it's not oversaturated. And I know this is kind of a dark color, so it may be hard to see. I'm gonna do it at this angle. So I've gone this way. Now I'm gonna go this way. Can you guys see the, look how fast it's soaking that up. I mean, super fast, right? So I know that this is not saturated. Can you guys see that? I probably should have picked a lighter color. I thought I had a light enough color for you guys. Well, unfortunately, I have to use whatever's actually empty, but it does. It soaks it up really quick. So I know that, and it's still soaking it up really quick. So I know that I need lots more ink on this ink pad. Now, you can oversaturate an ink pad, and if that happens, just blot it a little bit with a paper towel. But in the meantime here, I'm just trying to get some ink on here. So I'm going to keep going. You can see it's still soaking it up quite well, so it's definitely not oversaturated. I probably got enough on there to do what I need, but here's the thing. Once you feel like you have enough ink on your ink pad, you want to take an old like credit card or gift card or something like that, and you want to push, oops, you want to push down into the ink pad the ink that you just placed on top. I'm trying not to drop this. Normally I would just do this on the surface of my table, so maybe I should do that. But you can see here, I'm just going to push in all 4 directions. I usually go toward the center because we do most of our stamping toward the center, but I'm sort of pushing down at the same time to get my ink down in the ink pad. Okay? And then once you've done that, you can just clean that off with a paper towel or something, you know, whatever it is that you want to use. Wow, that stained that. Okay, so you could also use something like this to do that. That works really well. Just push that ink down into the ink pad, gets it all nice and incorporated so you don't have any areas that are less inky or more inky. You want to have kind of a smooth surface. Okay, so you can do that. Okay, so that's really great for getting everything re-inked. And then once you've done that, you're ready to go with your stamping. Okay, so that said, let's talk real quickly about re-inking our marker and how that works. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your, and I recommend personally, I've never done the bullet side. I always do this brush tip side. I don't know if it matters, but that's just how I've always done it. So that's what I recommend. So I take a pair of my reverse tweezers and I grab at the base of my, oops, it does slide sometimes. So just, and I kind of pinch at the same time, but I grab at the base of this piece because I don't really want to use my fingers. You can use your fingers. So you're going to get them all inky if you do. So I'm going to pull that out. You can see I just splattered ink everywhere. I don't actually need to fill this, so but I'm going to put a drop, okay? So you don't need to put a ton in this, but I'm going to add like a drop in here. Okay? Got it? And now I'm going to however much ink you need to add, right? It doesn't take a lot. And then you can replace, and you just push that back down in there. And like I said, I don't like to use my fingers because I don't like them to be really inky. But you certainly can. It is easier to use your fingers. And then just replace your cap, of course. Obviously, always make sure your caps are on tight. That will keep you from having to re-ink regularly. They will dry out if you leave the caps off. Okay, so you can re-ink these as well. Now, as far as talking about re-inking goes, there's other things you can re-ink too. You can re-ink your little pads. Now these pads, oh, I've never opened this one. That's funny. This is Azure Afternoon. I didn't realize I hadn't opened it. So I'm just gonna, I hate that blade. I'm gonna use my good Stampin' Up one because that one is nice and sharp. Okay. I like to just kind of gently try to lift it so it pulls away from the bottom. Be careful when you're doing this, by the way. And then I just slice one side, and I like to leave it attached. Now, there may be some techniques where you don't want this to be attached, but I like to leave it attached because that way, in the past, I used to not leave it attached, and then these little lids don't really stick on. So I prefer it like this, and I can always use it like this. So that's my preference. But you can take it completely off by doing both sides. So anyway, this is a little felt pad. So this is similar to Memento ink, which is not our ink. We do sell this, but it's not made by us. These are a traditional felt pad. It's the same style. So it does stamp a little bit different. This pad does. But they're super great for travel. They're also really great for certain techniques. I love them. And again, you can refill these just like you refill the other pads. So you can just add some ink to this and you're good to go. Store these upside down as well, and that will be very useful to you. Now that said, you can also buy a package, and there's 6 in these, of uninked Stampin' spots. And so the item number's right here, 141822, in case you're ever interested. Sorry, I've got hiccups. In case you're interested. Sorry about that. Anyway, these little ink spots are the same exact thing as this. They just don't have a label on them, okay? So what I do, now I don't have a Highland Heather ink spot, so I'm going to make one today just to show you how to do this. So I've got my Highland Heather re-inker, and so I'm going to add, like I said, I normally just do this on my desktop, but I'm doing this with you guys, so I'm trying to kind of show you. So I'm just going to add ink to my ink pad. And usually what I do is I add ink until I feel like it's not soaking up ink anymore. The first time you do this, it's going to take more ink, of course, because it's a completely dry pad. So I'm just adding, oh, see how it took a little bit longer there? Let me give it a second. You can also kind of tap and give gravity a little help. And you can push with a credit card. All that kind of stuff works. So I'm gonna add a little bit more ink here. See how it's sitting on top for a little bit longer? I don't know if you guys could see that or not. Okay, so I'm gonna push now with my piece here. My whatever this is. What is this called? Spatula. Words. Y'all know me. Okay. So once you get that pushed down in there, that is definitely saturated. It's ready to go. I don't need to add any more to that. So I'm going to clean this up. And I can close this. And now this is totally ready to go as my Highland Heather pad. Now, how do I know that's Highland Heather? So this is what I recommend. You can do a couple of things. You can take, you guys know I don't have one, I need to buy one, but you guys know the circles. I was planning on buying some of them before I did this video, but I forgot. You can buy those little circle stickers. You can buy those, and then you can color them or stamp on them with blends or your regular inks, whatever you want to do with the colors, or write on them, however you want to do it. Another option, and I like this one, is to take, oh, sorry. I'm going to grab my scraps here. So here I have some Highland Heather scrap paper. And so I can take this and I can punch. Now I'm probably going to use actually a 1-inch punch, but just, I've got this handy, so I'm just going to show you. So I can punch a 1-inch circle. We're going to pretend that that's a 1-inch circle. I don't have my 1-inch handy. I've got it over on the other side of the room, so I'm not going to go grab it. I forgot it. Sorry. And I can write Highland Heather on this if I want to, and then stick that to the bottom. I could also put it on the top, or I can use any kind of label and use my Highland Heather markers for that as well and write Highland Heather on it. So my preference is the little circles. I think those are awesome. So the little circles you can get at like your, at your, what do you call it? Your, what am I saying? Your office supply store, I think are really great for that. And then just color them with your blends, and write Highland Heather on it, and bam, I put one on each side. So you have it on both pieces of this. And then you've got this completely labeled. So it might not look like this, but it'll be ready to go. And so you've got all of your colors, whether you have an official Stampin' spot or not. So anyway, that is, I think, everything I know about preparing your Stampin' inks and all that, making use of your ink pads, little tips and tricks. Does anybody have any questions, or does anybody have any other tips for prepping your inks or things like that that I forgot? Hey, everybody. Everybody that said hi, I appreciate that. I really do appreciate it when you guys say hi to me on lives. Yes, please comment on the video. Let me know if you have questions. All right. I'm trying to see if anybody has any questions. If not, I will let you guys go, but I want to make sure I get everyone's questions answered. All right, no questions. So if you do have one, feel free to add it. Or always you can text me. That's really the best way to ask me any questions. Yeah, that you can re-ink markers. Isn't that awesome? Yeah, do not try to re-ink your blends. You guys, these are different from blends. These you can re-ink. Hold on. These you cannot re-ink, okay? These are alcohol-based. This is water-based. So this is water-based and this is water-based. This is a yes, this is a no. Okay, so you can refill these. You don't ever have to replace these unless you need a new tip or something like that. And even then, they used to provide new tips. I can't even remember if they still do that because I haven't had to have one in like probably 20 years. But they might. But anyway, if you take care of your Stampin' Right markers, you'll never need to replace anything, honestly. That is the honest to God truth. These are alcohol-based, so yes, you do want to replace these. But the refill will work for these. Yes, Facebook has quite a long delay. You are correct on that. There's probably like a 14-second delay. Always. It's no fun. Okay. All right. Well, I hope you guys have a really, let's see. No, there are no refills for the alcohol markers. Honestly, and I like that. You do need to replace these. And the reason I like it is because, for one, while the bullet tip is probably something you never need to replace, this can get worn out quite quickly if you're not careful. And so it's better to just replace it anyway. Also, I think that the issue with trying to refill these, and they may change that in the future, but I think the issue with trying to refill these is that if you try to remove this, it's going to cause some issues with sealing and things like that. Anyway, I don't know if that's the honest truth or if that's just my assumption. But at this time, there are no refills for this. That may change. But they do have these at such a great price point that it really just makes sense to get new ones. And it has worked out better for me in the long run so far to just replace them. I feel like having new fresh tips is better for these because we use this more for coloring, whereas this is more for writing. It just kind of works out better. So I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm being crazy. But yeah. So all this is water-based. This is alcohol-based. So this is a totally different thing. This is regular ink. That's not. Okay. Thank you so much for joining me today to talk about our inks. And I hope you got some good tips and tricks. If you want to add anything here, feel free. If you have any questions, of course, always text me. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. And please join us Friday through Sunday at 2 p.m. Central Time each day for live creative inspiration. Thanks so much, guys. Have a great week. God bless.